Okay, good morning, everyone. So today is what day?
17th.
July 17th, and we're gonna open the Land Bank Commission meeting and welcome those of you who have showed up. We'll start out with general public comment. So I see we have some public here, which is great. Oh.
Hi, I'm Richard Grout, and this is my wife Susan. We are neighbors of the current trail, the Nuthatch Trail. Our driveway is about 100 feet north of the entrance to the parking area. We use that trail a lot, and we're very happy with it. Land Bank has been a really good neighbor on that property. The Ingram property that you are considering acquiring is on our north boundary. It runs along our entire north boundary. Greg has been a really good neighbor. We know that property really well because Greg has allowed us to walk it since he bought it. We've been up to the top of the hill many times. We think that would be a terrific acquisition and we're all in favor of it. The other consideration for us too is we're in the fourth year of the drought. And that, as you know, there could be up to 12 homes on that property, and we think the land bank continued agricultural use, we hope, would be a much better use of that property, and we support it completely and hope that you acquire it. Thank you.
Ditto.
Thank you.
My name is Noah Waldron. I am, my property, I think does technically abut, the back edge. I live off of Beaverton Valley. And my brother and I had bought my father's property from him. So the two of us do share a decent borderline with Ingram property. And have been involved with, that farm for the last 20 years or so, as my father, and then recently, my brother and I have been managing a lot of the farm, along with the current, Giuseppe Nally. So I spent a lot of time on that piece of property, and it is a very nice piece of property if you haven't been out there as well. And, I would also advocate for, having it not be developed into homes, as that would change the landscape a lot, as well as continued use in agriculture. Because I think those properties are dwindling, and it seems to be that the land bank is one of the opportunities to have that space continue to be open and used for agriculture.
Good, thank you.
And I also use the Nuthatch Trail, before it was part of the land bank, and I think the additions have been very nice. I don't use the parking area either, which is, it is a nice parking area, but having that local access and be able to walk there. And I would also love to see that stretched all the way to town, however that engineering could potentially work with that, but yeah.
We sometimes pass he and his brother running on the trail.
Any other public comment? Anybody online? Hard to see hands.
Doesn't look like it.
Doesn't look like it. Okay, well, thanks for the comments. Next thing is approving the minutes from last month's meeting. Any comments, recommendations, changes?
I move to accept.
Okay. Hearing nothing else to be changed, we'll go ahead and approve those meeting minutes. And next, we move on to chair and commissioner reports. Well, okay.
I have a quick thing, Peggy, since
Yep.
I haven't spoken up yet. I've been on 3 Preserve on Orcas this week, and it's always just such a good reminder of how special they are and how lucky we are to have them. But 2 things. I was at North Shore yesterday, and it's so interesting in the fenced area, which does have a lot of groundwater. The plants are thriving, and out of the fenced area, the deer browse is so obvious. It's just a reminder of that. But my main thing today is I want to just give a shout out to our field assistants, the people out on the in the field doing all the work. They're like our public interface or interfacing with the keen, the volunteers, the visitors, the public that are out there. They're being mentors and teachers to the YCC and the ICC. And I was doing some Scotch broom control in my neighborhood yesterday, and they're doing all that hard work too. So I think we're just really lucky to have them. And this is a hard time of year for them. So thanks to all of them.
Well, I'll second that. I have one of the co-leaders for the YCC living at my house while she's here. And so they're doing work on Lopez, including on land bank land. And it's really fun and inspiring to kind of hear about it day by day about what they're doing and what they're taking on and what they're learning. And it's fabulous. We're really, really lucky to have. So also, we had a fire on Lopez right next to our channel preserve. And that was pretty exciting. I know Amanda will give a bigger update on that, but so far nothing was damaged on the channel preserve. No houses were damaged, but we had the San Juan fire crew there, Orcas fire crew there, DNR was dumping water on it. So it was potentially a fire that was going to really get out of control. So it was really great that we got the response that we got. What's that? Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's kind of what been going on for me. Busy time, lots talking about in terms of kind of budget and the land bank and everything else, but we'll hear more about that from Justin and Lincoln. Anybody else? Okay, moving along. Council update, Justin.
Good morning, everybody. Sorry I can't be there with you. If we had better transportation between the islands, that would I'd be able to be there. File that away in your snarky remarks for regarding ferries for the day. So council side, I don't think there's any. It's no different than previous updates that we're 1,000% budget, 1,000% of the time right now at the county level. I am intrigued to hear from the land bank commissioners on the discussion of agriculture and the agricultural resources coordinator position, and just get your thoughts. I think the key there is that everything right now is thoughts, and we're just trying to take in everybody's information. So looking forward for that conversation. Along those lines, it has also been pretty inspiring. I've had outreach from several adjunct organizations about some of that work and wanting to help fund some of that work. So hopefully you all don't feel like this is dropping on your lap and you are required to play the savior role in any of this. There are a lot of folks talking about this position in particular. I think there are some positive budget things that are coming out for the land bank, and I can't see Lincoln's face, but he may nod or not. Regarding some of the fleet stuff, that should be addressing not totally all of the concerns related to that item, but I think there are some good things that we're doing policy wise within the budget to address some of those concerns. And I think the last thing, and I don't know how this plays out, I think it's going to play out in the future. I think the one thing that this budget discussion is really bringing up in the community is the whole world we live in terms of designated funds doing designated work. And I know that the land bank has been identified as we're doing our budget discussions. I have heard more than a dozen times. Well, the land bank has all this money. Why don't you just use that money to balance the budget? And you guys did an admirable job during the campaign last year, or sorry, 2 years ago, in talking about how land bank funding works. But this is just another call to me that we have a lot of education to do in how our budget works in terms of specific money doing specific work. Because as much as I would love for the land bank to fund the sheriff's office, that's not what the voters said we could do. So, I I will continue to do that work, and I thank all of you for any work that you can do in the community as people raise those um, sometimes intriguing ideas and let them know, no, sorry, state law and county law doesn't allow that to happen. And if we were to do that, we would all go to jail. Um, and that's what I tell people. I'm like, yes, I could do that, but I would go to jail, and I am not currently interested in that slot in life. Um, I think more budget to come. I can I think the positive news for the land bank is, Aaron, thank you for having some of the best financials around. It's easy to read the financials. It's easy to understand them from a land bank perspective. And the land bank remains healthy, and I think from a budget standpoint, you guys are in great shape in my eyes. So I think that's all I have, unless people have specific questions for me.
Okay, well, thanks, Justin. Really appreciate that and really appreciate your support and adhering to the state ordinance. That's very helpful. So I trust you'll keep us up to date as it goes forward. Partner update, Preservation Trust.
Good morning, all. Thank you, Peggy. My name is Vicki Edwards. I'm the Conservation Director with the San Juan Preservation Trust. I have two updates regarding partnership projects with the Land Bank. The first being is that our summer social is scheduled for July 25th at Kaufelt Farm, and it's from 1 to 3:30. That's on Orcas Island. Really want to give a shout out to Peter for his help in getting things scheduled, also sharing maps for us to be able to hand out to folks on Turtleback Mountain hikes. We will not have transport from Kaufelt to Turtleback Mountain, but we will be able to view it and celebrate our 20-year anniversary with our community and you all as partners in being able to protect that amazing landscape. And really want to thank Lincoln as well for his support and being there to provide some words and sharing about that experience many moons ago. We will have that shuttle that will be taking folks, as I mentioned, from the Orcas Ferry to Kaufelt Farm. If you would like to register for the event, we are taking registrations up to 150 people. We already have 111 that are registered. You can go to our website and click on click on events, and you can register there. And so it'll walk you through everything and it'll send reminders for folks. We'll have games, food, music, and it'll be a lovely afternoon to be able to celebrate such an amazing conservation outcome for our community and islands. My next update is regarding Mount Ben West conservation easement. Our team has been working behind the scenes with the land bank team, including Lincoln, Doug, and of course also our San Juan County Prosecuting Attorney's Office. Really want to thank John for his work with Alice Jones, our outside legal counsel, and helping to move that conservation easement forward. We are going to need to extend our cooperative agreement with the land bank since the scheduling of county council meetings, if as planned, is for the end of August and beginning of September, and our cooperative agreement expires the end of August. So we'll be working with John to be able to extend that to the end of September and have a closing, if approved by the commission and the council, hopefully September 15th. So just want to thank everyone for working through that and all of us being flexible to help make that project come to fruition. And if folks have any questions, I'll be here for the next throughout the rest of the meeting. Please let me know, and you can always reach out to me at Vicky, VICKIE, at sjpt.org. Thanks all.
Thanks, Vicky. I'll be there. I hope other people can go too.
Wonderful. Look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah. Okay, quarterly financial report. Aaron. This is what we're supposed to have to. The stupid owl is stuck on me.
But not,
Very,
now you don't have to worry.
it's like the weird spot to sit in. Which one? Oh, the owl picture, I'm just like, it's pain.
Okay, so first up, for finances today, we have the second quarter of 2026 financial report. The second quarter is usually a good opportunity to see if everything is going the way it should. This is kind of where we can check and see if REIT is not tracking the way we want to, and we can start thinking about making adjustments. Spending on stewardship, this is where we really see, is the first phase of the year with planning and smaller maintenance management, smaller dollar value projects kind of get off the ground and going until we get into that third and fourth quarter where stewardship starts spending a little bit. And that's really what we're seeing, just business as usual. Everything's tracking the way we had hoped it would. So far, through 6 months, it's a good start to the year. We'll start with cash. Between the conservation area fund, stewardship fund, and endowment fund, we see an increase from the first quarter of 850,000. A lot of that is just REIT driven. And the only time we would see big reductions if our spending is outpacing REIT revenue. So like I said, everything is kind of humming along the way it should. Long-term debt payments aren't made yet, so no change there. So as I said, it's just a good check to see that revenue is coming in and outpacing spending, so everything checks out there in terms of cash. We're sitting at 17.4 million combined. We'll move down to revenues and expenditures here. Nothing to really footnote. There weren't any major acquisitions, any sales of land, any large donations. There was some exciting activity in the first quarter that got us going and was worth noting. But right now, like I said, everything is kind of just operating on a normal basis right now. Nothing standing out at this point. When we do look at REIT revenue and we start tracking how the year might shape out, for the second quarter, taking in 1.1 million is a great number. If you look at the chart off to the right, we have a highlighted number for year to date through 6 months, sitting at just over 2 million comparative to the last 3 years. Really strong. 23 was a really good year, kind of off the heels of 21 and 22. 23 was also a really good year, as you can see, 4.3 million. So when you start to look at how the months are coming in, us being a cash market mainly, and the market's still doing strong, there's no reason to be concerned that we aren't going to continue on this trend for the time being until we see something really change there. The amount of sales that we're taking in the county are up over the previous 2 years. So things are trending well. Always look at this cautiously, because you never know when it could end, but things are continuing normally, and we should anticipate good things by the end of the year.
Eric, quick question. For July, I know we've got the numbers for the first couple weeks. Where are we?
Yeah, we're over 300,000 right now, halfway through the month, and on pace for 700,000, which is 200,000 over the best July we've ever had, and that's including COVID years.
Yeah.
And it wasn't one big sale that gave us 200,000. It has been daily, just a consistently high average. So it's a good thing. It's got me to the point where I'm comfortably projecting 4 million in rate, from 3.5, where we've been sitting through this point. At this point in July, I'm comfortable managing expenses with the expectation of $4 million REIT at this point. The numbers are showing that's even the low end, so that's really a conservative view.
Yeah, because I'm looking at last year where we were way lower, but we finished the last 6 months crazy strong.
Yeah.
So that happens.
Yeah,
again.
it's one of those things we constantly fight this this fear that it might fall off a cliff, right? You can see how we go from 23, we were at 4.3, and then 24, 3.5, right? So, and then right back up. So it's one of those things we're always, trying to remain cautious as long as possible, but also not hamstringing ourselves. Consistently showing good numbers, and we should plan based on it. So that's kind of the direction we're going there. So other revenues, nothing really standing out. LGIP interest continues to do well. Lease property. We got a bunch of 10-year leases. Everything's going along well there. Grant revenue. Some of that is from the closure of a few other grants that we did have going that we got final reimbursement for. They were acquisition grants that didn't go through. One was for the water rights of Coho, or Cascade, sorry, not Coho, Cascade Creek, water rights. Just they were really just small reimbursements for administrative money spent in some consultant costs for Washington Water Trust and things like that, and then a little bit for the Beaverton Trail project. But we're going to see those numbers really start to spike in receiving some of those reimbursements in July, actually. So we got a few reimbursements in there. Onto expenditures. If you look at administrative costs for conservation area fund, and then wages and operations for stewardship, and you look at percentage of budget, those are numbers that should sit right there in the 50s this time of year. Stewardship's a little bit lower because we should have a seasonal field assistant on Lopez, but we hired somebody, a pre-existing injury got in the way and wasn't able to do the job. And then we went through a couple rounds trying to find some people. We ultimately did hire somebody, so we will be filling that position again for the rest of the year, but it's a little bit lower because that money just wasn't spent. Acquisition cost, you all know we have a lot of projects going right now, so there's a lot of general professional services, appraisals, reviews of those appraisals and other things like that. None of those are actual acquisition dollars towards a property. Those are all just general preparation and due diligence costs. The debt payment there was for interest, not principal. Property management maintenance, you see that big bump from year-to-date total 630,000, but 403,000 in Q2. That's because we're starting to see the work actually get done now that the weather is getting nicer. And we'll see more of those site enhancement dollars increase as the year goes on, but right now everything's tracking really well. So yeah, for a second quarter, everything operationally is just coming along just fine. So if you have any questions about that?
Good news.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So if anybody has any specific questions about the budget, Tim, I think you might. Or do you want to go over those now, or do you want to go over this later?
About the budget?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, after I do the budget presentation, we can talk about that.
Okay.
I have one quick question on the position, the field assistant on Lopez. If it was not filled now, does that extend the position into the fall or is it just shortened?
Technically, the hours are still available. They can work 520 hours in a season. That's the max for the union contract. If the work is needed, the work is needed. If not, it's savings. We'll just see what Amanda's needs are.
Yeah.
Go from there.
Thanks.
Right. So does that move us right into the second amended budget?
Okay,
Pull that up. It's there. Oh boy. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a second. I'm not sure where that was.
This is your moment for coffee top off. Well played.
I'm back. New computer, so. Okay. This is the proposed second amended expenditure and acquisition plan for 2026. Originally, you guys, the commission approved a biennial expenditure and acquisition plan. The county ended up only approving 2026. So this second amended budget is only covering the year for 2026. What we're going to look at here is just a few additions. These amendments typically do not cover revenue sources that do not have an expenditure attached to them. The only time you would see revenue increase, like we're not going to change our projection in the budget for REAP revenue from 3.5 to 4 million. There's no expense attached to that. The only time we'll see revenue increases if there's a grant or a cost share agreement, which you'll see some of that in here. Donations that are attached to capital expenditures as well. You'll see both of those play out in the stewardship fund. But anytime we just want to say we were our budget had $100,000 in interest income, but we're way beyond that. We're not going to put that into a budget where we increase that. We just don't do that for revenues. It's state auditors, not a huge fan of that, so we don't do that here. So let's get into it. Conservation area fund. We do not have any revenue increases. We do have, hold on here. You can see our ending cash adjustment there. It's 524,000 taken from ending cash. There's two amendments that we are including in that. One of them is a little procedural. You can see under acquisition cost there, there's $24,000, and that is for our stewardship coordinator position, who is doing much more work on acquisition grants than previously. And with those acquisition grants, we need to capture all of that work being done in one fund. We can't use two funds to cover a grant that is set up with one fund. So all that work and time spent administering those grants needs to be captured in the conservation area fund. And we made it very specific to put that 20% of those wages into the acquisition costs, which is calculated and separate from administrative costs. So that 10% cap that we have, the acquisition portion does not affect that 10% cap.
Okay,
So the money spent there does not elevate that percentage.
Do you want to explain that for those who might not be aware of that 10% cap?
Yeah, it's part of the state law and the ordinance that that the Conservation Area Fund operates on a maximum of 10% administrative costs for the lifetime of the program. So there might be years, and there have been years with economic lows where on an annual basis, we exceed that 10%, but over the life of the program, we typically run around 6% is the life of the program. So it's something we're constantly monitoring. It's something that we think about for the future as the program continues to grow and what that looks like. Stewardship wages and operations do not go into that calculation. It's only out of the Conservation Area Fund, since the Conservation Area Fund is where all the revenue comes in. That revenue funds the stewardship fund. So it's kind of a branch. So that 10% mark is specific to the Conservation Area Fund. And then $500,000 added to unspecified acquisition projects. This is a new thing with the county. We will not have specific budget lines for specific properties anymore. It was getting, statewide, these things, the thing with BARS codes and the Washington State financial system, everyone operates off the same thing. So this is one area where they're trying to consolidate it. So it's one line item now, which is always going to be recognized in the budget as unspecified acquisition projects. And then through footnotes and things like that, we'll be able to elaborate on what those specific or multiple projects sometimes are. In this case, we have one, which is the Mount Bend West Conservation Easement that we needed to get into the budget. We set that at 500,000, but I think Lincoln wants to talk about that a little bit.
Well, I will talk about that. Yeah, so the 500,000 is a placeholder number. We're still waiting for the appraisal to come in to determine the value of that acquisition. We have a preliminary number. I'm not wanting to get into that right at the moment, but we are going to be talking with Preservation Trust this afternoon, and we should have a completed appraisal early next week. So that number will change.
And when that number changes, do we have to do yet another amended?
We would only have to do that if it would be over.
Okay.
We set an aggressive dollar amount in there to make sure we cover it and only have to do it once. But yeah, unless something changes, we shouldn't have to do a third amendment on that. All right, so that's it for the Conservation Area Fund. Get into the stewardship fund here. This is where I was talking about revenues being attached to expenditures. We have two projects here going on. You see $70,000 in cost share program at Caulfield Farm. This is for a heavy use area. It is a $140,000 project. The land bank pays for it, and the conservation district reimburses us for 50%. So as we move down, I'll note it again, but that is what's listed out in the capital expenses for amendments. And then the $3,000, there's the potential that we have, we're building a greenhouse, mobile greenhouse at the nursery. And there's, the cost of the total program, we potentially could get donations to cover the rest of that project. We did receive $10,000 in 2025. In 2025 for the greenhouse. Really got us going. The total cost and projection for that greenhouse is around 13,000. So there's a potential that we receive, coverage for the remainder through donation. Might not have to spend anything on that. So we wanted to make sure that was captured. So then expenses overall, $80,000 in reduction of ending cash. And that is because we have the revenues. There is the balancing for the stewardship coordinator position. Those wages are being removed from the stewardship fund, 24,000, over into the conservation area funds, acquisition budget. We do have around $2,000 vehicle. That is for the purchase of the Chevy Colorado, the old Lopez work truck that is now here on San Juan Island as the second work truck. We were able to purchase that for the salvage value of the vehicle from Fleet. That vehicle is no longer in Fleet. And we will have to assume the costs of maintenance and maintenance schedule. There is some communication on what that might look like. We might be able to use Fleet to still manage that. We've had some conversation. There are some general maintenance and tires and things like that that need to be done this year, and Fleet reached out about it. So it sounds like there's gonna be a good relationship with, even though we removed that vehicle from Fleet, to still get some service support from them, and you know, that puts money back into Fleet in another way. One of the other things that we're not gonna do anymore is pay into Fleet on an annual basis for getting a new vehicle, for increasing our balance to purchase a new vehicle. We'll take that on ourselves with our own funding source. So whenever we need a new vehicle, the land bank will be paying for that, not Fleet.
That gives us more flexibility in terms of service life of the vehicle also.
So then capturing in site enhancement, capital improvements, that 13,000 in San Juan Island is where we capture all the revenues and expenditures for the nursery. So that 13,000 is the greenhouse that I mentioned, and the 140,000 in capital improvements for ag, that is to capture the expense for the heavy use area in the cost share program with the conservation district. Overall, to total cash, it was about 600,000 in reduction in ending cash for the program as a whole. Also with operating with the new projection of $4 million, that's really $100,000 hit maybe by the end of the year, if that's all we get for REIT. But in terms of expense, it's definitely something that the land bank is able to absorb and maintain operational quality. That's all we got.
So moving forward with the new vehicle purchases, will there be a fund set aside, or is it just kind of pay as we need it?
Lincoln and I have talked about both options. We haven't fully resolved that.
Yeah.
one yet.
Yeah, we haven't made a decision.
Yeah.
Sounds like it doesn't need to happen anytime soon. We have a couple new vehicles.
No, I think that, we don't have any pressing needs. The older truck, the Colorado, is gonna go as long as it's gonna go. As long as it's still safe and operating well, we'll carry it on. That does give you some window though into the fleet operation versus, you know, how we use our vehicles, where we're running a 2008 vehicle. It's got 70,000 miles on it. It still runs fine, works fine. So we'll continue to use that as long as we can. And
Amanda misses it.
sorry,
Amanda misses it.
I know. We could trade her. No, so we'll see. With the newer vehicles, obviously they'll continue on for quite some time.
Yeah.
We may have an expense with our Kubota loader, which we've been having some problems with. But who knows? Let you know.
Yeah, it's a good reminder, but it's not just vehicles. We do have tractors and Kubotas and, you know, dump trailers, some of these things that would go through fleet. are just gonna be managed by the land bank now.
Okay.
The current inventory we have is still in fleet. We haven't made decisions on pulling those out yet. Just anything, moving forward. The land bank will manage. All right, any other questions?
Good job.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then. We get open up public hearing.
So one thing before we do that, to note. Peter, you may want to jump in here, but one of the things we're planning on attaching to this budget, is the, Dolphin Bay, management plan. This is, we adopt management plans formally, as part of a budget, so it can be attached to this and then council would approve this budget. So Peter, I don't know if you want to jump in here quickly and.
Sure. Yeah, good morning, everyone. So I sent the draft management plan for the Dolphin Bay property to the commission. I think it was June 22nd, seeking review. I've gotten a few comments, so thanks for those. Our plan is to incorporate those edits and then put it out for 30-day public comment as soon as possible. Maybe this coming week, if everyone that wants to review it has had a chance to do so. If you still want to review it, there's let me know and we'll delay a little bit. But the sooner we can get it out, the sooner we'll be able to begin work on the property. So, which we're hoping that we might open before the end of the year.
Peter, I do plan to review it and I apologize. I just haven't gotten to it. I can do that by Sunday evening. Cause I don't want to hold this up.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Ditto on that, but I'm not sure about Sunday evening.
Me too. I'll try for
The
Sunday.
latest on Monday morning when I'm on a ferry.
How about we say next Tuesday or something like that?
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Yeah, good work on that.
Thank you.
Okay, so. Do we have to take action on this? Do we have,
So
yeah.
the way budgets work, we have to have a public hearing, and hear from the general public if they have comments on the budget. And so this is our opportunity to do that. Once we've heard, public comment, you can close the public hearing and proceed on to make a decision on the budget.
Thank you. Always appreciate that.
Do we need to approve the stewardship management plan to include it within the budget? Or
Not in there.
It's not up for public review yet.
it's not, we're not quite there yet.
Okay.
So I think we'll come back to that. Because it's a management plan. And also honestly, there's not gonna be a whole lot of, intention around it or anything. So I think we can come back around to that at the next meeting and just get consensus agreement that it's fine and we'll just attach it to the budget.
I guess I'll just add that you've all seen the proposed budget. It's in this year's budget. The proposed expenditures to open that preserve, and we plan to spend less than what was budgeted.
Okay. Good. So, any public comment about the budget or questions?
Well, let's do it faithfully.
Protocol. Okay, we're gonna open public comment.
Public hearing.
Okay, the public hearing for the 2026 second amended budget. Thank you. Promptings are always good. So, any public comment, either online or here in person? Okay, I think this means you did a really good job, Aaron. Okay, hearing no public comments, then we will go ahead and proceed to have Land Bank Commission discussion and we will take action.
Close public hearing and proceed on.
We are now closing the public hearing and we will proceed with our discussion.
Peggy, I make a motion that we accept the amended budget and move it forward.
Okay, do we
I'll
have a,
second.
we have a second to that? Any comments?
No,
Good
thank
job.
you, Erin. I think Erin did a great job on that presentation. It was very clear.
Mhm.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Passed. Okay, good job.
you.
Okay, moving on to director's report.
All right, I have a couple of things for you. As Justin previewed, I did want to talk a bit about the Agricultural Resources Committee and what's happening in the county current budget, where that coordinator position is proposed to be dropped, just because it's one of those victims to reality and shortfall in revenues to cover costs and current expense. So there was some discussion about what would happen with the Agricultural Resources Committee, and there was an idea that maybe the land bank could take on staffing that committee. That isn't really workable unless we find some other source of funding for staff to actually do that, because our funds are really limited to our state enabling ordinance, which is it's one sentence. Our funding is to acquire and maintain conservation areas. That's it. So staffing this committee really doesn't work for us. However, the committee does do some things which are important to the land bank and consistent with our mission. They are advocating for conservation of agricultural land and for improving agricultural practices, finding revenue, generally in conjunction with other agencies to help improve how farms are run. So those things are important to us. And so the discussion we're having now with the county, other county departments, but also with the conservation district and other groups is maybe we can find some funding to put toward maintaining that position and take the burden off of the current expense account, but split contributions. So we're talking, I think we might put $10,000 toward that. No decisions have been made, but that would enable us to still have that position in the county, still have the committee, with a staff commitment to it. And it would share the costs among a variety of interested parties. So that's kind of where we're headed with that. I just wanted to throw that out there and see if anyone had any particular issues, comments on that front.
Anne Marie's got a question.
Hi, I was wondering if there's any opportunities for us in the communications component where there might be a piece of what the staff does there that they could work closely with our staff to promote some of the communications pieces that deal with our agricultural program, or if there's anything that's done there that Charlie can do.
Yeah, there's a possibility. Charlie does actually sit on the Agricultural Resources Committee, so we've got pretty close contact with them and what's happening with that committee. So if there are opportunities good for synergy, we'll take them. Certainly, we participated in some things that ARC has been very involved in, like the agricultural summit that happens every year. So we'll take a closer look at that.
Justin.
Yeah, just a little factual context, Lincoln. The current cost for that position to the county is roughly $40,000, just so that everybody has that number kind of floating in the back of their head.
So I'll add that I've been engaged in this conversation quite a bit. Lincoln and I have talked, and I've talked with the ARC coordinator and other folks, and hopefully it's not premature, but one of the proposals that's out there right now, which I think is really has some good merit, is that Land Bank puts in some money, the Conservation District puts in some money through their voluntary stewardship program, which also supports the same mission. And then maybe there'll be some money coming from smaller amounts from a couple other organizations, one nonprofit and two nonprofits. So I think there's some good movement on this that's very different from the land bank housing this position, which I did not think had merit. It wasn't consistent with our mandate, but it's a really important position. And it's great to see that there's so much community support for finding a way to solve this.
All right,
Good.
to move on. Mary, can you pull up that? So we have one acquisition to talk about today.
That's a beautiful photo. Where's that? That yellow island?
It is. So
Wow.
it's a ruse. We don't own that property.
Yeah.
I love showing that picture, particularly in winter time. That's really important. Something to hope for.
That's a nature
But-
conservancy
But
property.
yeah,
but
today we're having July-uary or something like that,
Yeah.
anyway. Okay, so the project that we're gonna talk about today is on San Juan Island. And I wanted to start here with our priority areas on the northeast part of the island, because this is the portion of this island that we're talking about the project being within. So you can see the Beaverton Marsh Preserve outlined and highlighted in green there, lower right-hand corner, and then upper left, sorry, right. Let's try again. Beaverton Marsh, right-hand corner, southeastern corner, northwest corner, you can see Katy Mountain.
Can we, there we go.
Okay, so those are our two existing preserves. So let's proceed to the next slide. What we're talking about is a property that is catty-corner to the Beaverton Marsh Preserve. This is a pretty diverse property. It's 122 acres. It has a lot of agricultural activity occurring on the property, and it also has a significant natural area. You can see it's adjacent to more intact natural area, which is also within our priority area. We're not talking about any of that. Everything we're talking about today is in that yellow box. So 122 acres. We currently have the property under contract. There should be a 9 after that 4th. It's my mistake. It's 3.49 million is our purchase and sale agreement. With closing set to occur not after January 21st. So this will be a 2027 expenditure. And it will come back to you as part of the 2027 budget. So let's proceed on. Okay, hard to tell anything from this photo. But that's close up. So you can see the agricultural area on the right-hand side. This has been a farm off and on for many years. If you go back to the T sheets, which were what, 1870? 1890. You can see a small orchard on this property, so agriculture's been a part of it for a long time. If you go back to the 1932 aerials and look this whole area, including Beaverton Marsh, it was all farmed, one way or the other. So this property has a long agricultural tradition. But going along with that is the area to the west, which is in good natural condition and again connected to other intact natural habitat. Property does have a lot of water resources that go with it, including wetland areas, which you can see mostly going down the center of the property. That's probably the best area that southeastern portion of the property is not really, it's not really connected wetland. It's not really in great shape. So I would say the central portion, if we were to do something different than just continue agricultural practices, like doing some wetland restoration, that's where that would happen. But let's proceed on.
You're talking about that kind of central there, or are you talking about the one down southeast corner?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so this is a flip around. Because you weren't confused. So now you are. So this is just a view from the north. It unfortunately doesn't show up well on this screen, so we don't have to spend a lot of time on it. But that's just to show you actually the terrain, which you cannot see in this.
Lincoln, in the forested portion, there seems to be a square in the middle of the woods. Is that a natural formation, or I saw it on the other two? Is that a special area?
So
right there.
it is, I mean, this blue square obviously is not natural, but
Okay.
you can see the terrain, well, in some of the previous slides. This gets quite steep through here, and this is a spot when you hike the property, which is what happens now. People have been using, the owners have been allowing people to use this road to come basically around like this to this lookout spot. But that's just an open, untreed area. It's kind of a bald area, very thin soils, so no trees. And wide square. I think it's.
Okay.
Can you point out the Nuthatch property for everybody? I mean, Nuthatch Trail.
Nuthatch Trail, so our trail head starts here now and proceeds this way, in Beaverton Marsh.
Right.
So the idea, if we're acquiring this, would be we can connect to this property. We've got a corner to address. But I think we'll have no problem doing that. The likely route, I would say, since this is quite wet and going along this boundary also is close to neighbors. And the fact that there is this road, farm road, that comes up through here, which will function quite well as a trail. So I think the idea would be to have a roadside trail coming up this way to this point and then continue from here. Okay. There are a number of people in the room who I think have like that trail quite a bit. So, next slide. This is just these are the realtor shots. So I think people need to be aware of the situation where the current owner decided they wanted to sell the property. They decided to approach us first and give us a chance to put a contract in on it, which we have done. Backup plan was simply to list the property for sale. That would have been it. So I fielded a lot of calls from the realtor. Where's your contract? What are you gonna do? So we have it under contract now. We're fortunate in that they've given us a good bit of time to close on the property. unusual for real estate transactions. Typically, if you get something under contract, you're looking at buying it within 30 days. So, but just some shots of the mostly eastern part of the property here. See an extensive field. The property has a long history, varied history, strange history. Was a golf course. It was, I don't know what you would call it, religious center. This structure is a very large barn, which is set up for horses currently, or you could have a hockey team if you wanted. There's no room. So, next slide.
Can you show us the trail again on that last slide,
Sure, go back.
on the upper left-hand side? Which is,
Yeah, keep going. This might be better. So this is right side up now. So this is north. Our trailhead is down here. We envision a trail coming up, roadside trail to this point. So here's this road, which can follow all the way up and around, coming up to this point.
It's Greg's upper driveway, Joel.
and would it continue on down or would that be the end of it?
That would be the end of it. Whether it becomes a loop trail, that's a possibility. We don't know. We haven't gotten that far into it. What's very attractive though is that obviously we're investing quite a bit of resources in that Beaverton Marsh Trail. And this gives us an opportunity to extend that trail from town, assuming we get that crossing done, all the way out to this point. So it would be a pretty phenomenal hike for people. So our plan though, is not to just acquire this whole thing and run it. One of the things that we've learned is just how expensive agricultural infrastructure is. And our hope, frankly, is to take this 40 acres. We want to see that continue in agriculture. We don't feel the need to own that property. We would like to see another owner purchase it and run it as a farm. So that's what we'll be moving toward, basically. In our purchase and sale agreement, we have the ability to advertise this part of the property for sale. And we would try to come to the closing in a joint fashion in January with whoever is purchasing this. So we'll be promoting it, asking for proposals, and then the commission will be considering those proposals. Not just based on price, but also based on what ideas people are bringing forward for what they want to do with the property. So we do want to see it continue in agriculture. We don't want it to turn into 4 estates. That's not what we want at all. But hopefully we can find a compatible neighbor who wants to continue it in agriculture, probably with a conservation easement on it in some form or other. And we'll just have joint ownership. We'll be left with access in one way or another, whether it's a strip of property or whether it's an easement, which is clearly written to allow public access. John, when I said that. So we would own that other 80 acres. There's this area, the central 40-acre area. So a lot of this is in agriculture. We have some decisions to make about what happens here. Whether we're really more interested in some kind of restoration, whether we want to see that continue as part of this farm. So it could be that whoever gets this leases this. It could also be that this is an additional, acreage that they might purchase going along with the 40. We don't know yet. But our goal, again, is to end up with ownership of the 80 acres and to, sell off the 40 acres to someone who wants to farm it.
Lincoln, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Moving west from Halverson Road, roughly where is the western boundary of the 40 acres you would sell?
So this is, I know you can't see this unfortunately, this is 40 acres, 40 acres, 40 acres. So
There is a
this
fence
is the
along
part we
that
would
road.
sell, this is the
Oh,
corner.
there is.
Yeah, just past the barn.
Okay,
So I would ask that we say approximately 40 acres. We've had discussions about making sure that the water features are preserved, and I think leading by example, we should have a full wetland delineation, and it may, with a wetland buffer, go a little bit over that corner, we may want to protect. I mean, but I think we should have the information, so I think we say approximately. Obviously, we want most of that to be sold for the money, for agricultural operations, but I just approximately, please.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of, discussions with a potential buyer on what the configuration looks like.
But I think we should be leading that. They shouldn't be. It should be our decision to say, these are our sort of criteria, right? Not about agriculture, but like the natural feature piece that kind of gets close to that property line, at least from this map.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I think, are we done? What more slides do we have? One more? Well, just the last shot. So this is, the view from the back overlook that you reached. The trail, some wildflower areas, which are pretty extensive, and the higher elevation regions of this property going out, to the west. And just some other views in various perspectives. So that's what we got.
Okay. Anybody have some discussions and comments? I know I do. Marilyn.
Thanks, Peggy. Lincoln, at some point today, perhaps, can you talk a little bit about factors other than money that might influence the commission to choose one proposal over another if we get ideas on that 40 acres?
Yeah, I think this is gonna be fairly similar to the process we used with October Farm, which was part of Zylstra. And in that case, we had that area, 30-acre area, which had all of the farm infrastructure on it, and we really weren't interested in it. So what we did was ask for proposals, and we received probably, as far as I can remember, at least 3 or 4 different proposals. We'll set a value on the property. And people will come, with their offer, whether it meets that value or not, people will put in an offer. The other elements that will be important, I think, are just the type of land use that they're proposing. If someone's coming to this and saying, well, I really want to keep it as a farm, I have partners who I see grazing this area of the property, I see this area of the property as a more diversified farm. We don't know what we're gonna get, but I think the more detailed and more realistic the proposal is, the better. So on October Farm, for example, one of the proposals was for someone just to run cattle on it, and that was an agricultural operation, but it wasn't terribly exciting. So we would hope to get as detailed a proposal as we could. And also, I think, we'll need to come to some understanding about the wherewithal of the purchaser, so that we have some level of assurance that they can actually follow through on what they say they're gonna do. Is that good enough for you, Marilyn, or?
So we would sell it however many acres, retaining a conservation easement and an affirmative agricultural easement?
No,
we don't know
I,
yet.
we don't know. I don't think we're gonna have an affirmative agricultural easement. We've never done that before. So we have no experience actually monitoring and enforcing someone's farming on a piece of property. Our easements are designed to allow farming to continue on property. They're not designed to require people to farm. And I don't see that changing. We did have an interesting conversation with the Marin Agricultural Land
That's what I
Trust.
was thinking if you talk to Malt.
And so they do have affirmative conservation easements. One of the key points to remember there, though, is no one has ever tested those. There's never been a lawsuit from an owner who did not want to farm, so we don't have any clue how that would actually go. So I think we're probably not going to stray into that territory. But as far as keeping the open space of this property as agricultural rather than having some housing development, that's clearly something we're trying to avoid.
Yeah, but we would hold the conservation easement to extinguish the development rights, not say preservation trust can buy this and hold the easement, or we're not sure yet.
We're gonna meet with the Preservation Trust later today. See if they have any interest, but what I would see is for a conservation easement is less stripping development rights off of that 40-acre piece. There are already 3 houses out there and a ton of
I
infrastructure.
didn't realize it was three. Well,
I don't know how realistic that is, but we can certainly establish building envelopes. So keeping areas free of structures, that kind of thing. If additional acreage were to be involved in this, then I think we would definitely look at stripping the development rights. Say if someone wanted to buy an additional 20 acres, probably we would work to just remove all the development from that piece of the property.
Yeah, I would add to that, having been out on that property and on the adjoining piece, the 40 acres, we'll just call it that 40 acres, has quite a bit of other development, which doesn't show up in these photographs. So there are, I wouldn't call them 3 dwelling units. I would call them, there's 1 dwelling unit and another one that's being inhabited and an adjoining one that's not inhabitable. So the quality of those development is questionable. So yeah, that's not shown in any of the photos. And I have a great interest in protecting it for agriculture. I agree that affirmative easements are really tricky to maintain malt, which in Marin County, that's a huge agricultural area. So it really supports it. Very different from up here. I would really not support us taking on a property that has that many buildings on it, because that would be very costly for us, I think, and quite a risk. But I really appreciate this vision of let's work with the community. And I think a key piece to that is getting the word out, working with our partners to get the word out that we have this piece and then we want to entertain an offer on that. And that we want, I think the idea of something that really supports agriculture in our community is the key piece of it.
Right.
So that's what I look forward to doing this, seeing if we can pull that together. And if we did put an easement on it, which I think we would need to, that would affect the purchase price. We could do 2 things, sell it and then purchase an easement afterwards, or the sale price would reflect the value of the easement.
Yeah, I think that if it's an easement that does not eliminate residential development, then the value of it is going to be very, very minimal.
Right.
Because that's where almost all the value in these easements comes from.
Right.
So if we were to put an easement on which just established clear boundaries between built area and open space area, I don't think you're gonna see much diminution in value at all. If we stripped one development unit off of it, then we would reduce the price by that. It's an open conversation, you know, we just don't know. Every conservation easement you do is a partnership with the owner of the property. So the first step is to get proposals, people who are really interested in purchasing the property. And then we can talk to each of them. We can bring the proposals back perhaps in modified form. There's a lot of unknowns in this process. But we want to identify people who are at least interested at this point in time and who seem to have the ability to actually purchase the property.
Yes,
You got a couple hands up on.
okay. Mary,
Yeah, this might have already been answered, but I'm thinking about that concept of not stripping the development rights. So what I think I heard Lincoln say is that there could be an envelope, an area that, because if it's 28, what is it, 40 acres is zoned R10, is that right? But we could
Correct.
actually make an envelope that's smaller, and each house doesn't have to have a 20-acre area around it, right? We could put an envelope that 4 houses could actually be on there. I just think, you know, like in the county public image wise, there is that feeling sometimes that we're taking so much land out of the availability of putting houses. And if we retain the ability to put 4 houses, but in a smaller area on one edge of the property, that might be a positive thing. I guess that's what I'm thinking.
good point. Anne Marie?
Yeah, I'm kind of in a different zone. I was wondering what kind of agriculture is the property currently being used for? I mean, is it a cattle ranch, or are they running horses or pigs or what?
It's varied, so there is an agricultural lease, where cattle are being grazed on the property. And then the current caretakers have a small agricultural operation with goats and chickens and a variety of other things. But, you know, we're certainly not seeing the agricultural potential of that property at its full extent, or you know, at much of an extent. In the past, there has been a series of farms, and a lot of produce grown. Tanya, you were probably the only staff person who might have been out there when it was running as a farm.
2008.
2008, so, but it was run for diverse agricultural production at that point.
Well, we
Do-
also have,
Does anyone ever propose like a low impact, kind of agriculture for property? I mean, is that something that you can do so that it's not all cows and stuff?
Well, I think the important thing for us is to see that the resource is protected in some way. And so what that means is not degrading the soil quality of the property, and certainly not contaminating the water resources or wetland areas that go with the property. So we want to see best management practices for agriculture. What form that takes is another question, but that's our bottom line hope for it.
so we do have here, your name is Noah?
Yes.
Yeah, so Noah and his father have been farming it with cattle. So you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. I think some of what you've alluded to is there's been a lot of change over the years. Realistically, a lot of that has depended upon my father, who has had the lease, and his physical ability and age. He's now 80 years old. So that amount of farming has decreased with his physical ability in that. In the last year or so, my brother and I have tried to take over a lot of his farming operations, and it's getting a little bit split. As he was a classic person that liked to do maybe more things than he was capable of. So we're doing a lot of the cattle, and we utilize rotational grazing, so that it is hopefully actually not degrading the property, at a minimum. And there's a lot of research that if you want to get into it, about like amp grazing and some of that actually brings back a lot of the soil health. So we're trying to institute some of those practices, and we have a cattle herd that is currently not on the property. We are moving through the neighborhood, through some of the other neighbors' properties as well. And there was for a number of years, a large market garden that was very successful. That the current owner or the current occupants of the house are sort of rehabilitating, because it went without use for a number of years, and a lot of that ultimately was just financial, where the market garden was not as financially viable. But there have been a number of other projects that are, meat chickens and larger poultry operations and hogs, and there was grain grown there as well. So it currently is probably in a state where it is getting a lot less use, mainly due to some aging of our island population and trying to get a grasp on what people can do that also have full-time jobs that are not farmers as a primary.
I thought that was the definition of a farmer.
According to Jim Stowe.
Yeah, that may not be inaccurate, but I try to, I try to review it a little bit, but it is probably pretty accurate.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Justin has his hand up.
Justin.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for putting Noah ahead of me, because he mentioned a couple things there that I think are worthy of discussion. As you all talk about the elimination of density or residential units, and I think to Mary's point, one of the key pieces of the comp plan work that we did the previous 2 years was the discussion of housing in agricultural areas and the necessity for us to have the ability for creative housing in agricultural areas, and the need for there to be housing that accommodates both the primary farm occupant and then the potential for successive planning by bringing either younger families or making housing viable on these farms, so that there's more hands as our farmers turn 80 and are no longer able to do the work, but it is not a viable full-time occupation. And so I would urge a lot of caution in restricting residences in terms of number, but I appreciate the need to protect areas. But I do believe that if we want agriculture to be successful in our community, we have to be creative with our ability to house people on the farms. And the idea that a person could live there at a reduced cost to execute the work is still is very important.
Very hard to enforce that. Good. Okay.
Oh, wait, one.
Oh, Tim.
So I was counting off on my fingers. It sounds like we have 6 months before closing. This will be a relative, I mean, I'm very appreciative of the owner and the realtor to give us that time to work through something, but it will be relatively quick, especially with the commission's meeting schedule just once a month. So do you have any idea when proposals might be needed?
Yeah, I would hope that we would be through with the proposal process in September at some point.
Okay.
I don't know if we're gonna make the commission meeting date or not, frankly, but having some clarity about, how this is gonna proceed at some point in October would be really helpful. I don't really want to extend too much beyond that.
Yeah, see that. Thank you.
So go ahead. Just to clarify, the sale of the approximately 40 acres is tied to the proposal, so it's all together. I want to buy this and here's my proposal. They're not sort of two separate pieces, right?
Right.
And here's my money. Yeah, yeah, it's a really tricky, and I really, thank you, Lincoln, because this is not your usual way for putting together a deal. And I appreciate that the realtor and the landowner is willing to have us work this way. And it will behoove all of us to figure out a good way to get the word out to members of the ag community to really put together some good viable proposals, and funding. And so we can brainstorm on that one.
Marilyn.
Marilyn?
Thanks, Peggy. Just a quick clarification, like does this not mean, per Amy's comments, that we are looking at doing survey work or somehow figuring out exactly what parcel it is that we are offering and with what easements or other considerations before we make this proposal, before we offer this out to the public? I mean, it's a lot of work to do right now, but is that your plan? Thank you.
I don't think we're gonna have the ability to have a survey done in advance of, getting the word out on and asking for proposals. I think what we can say, though, is that we're definitely gonna reserve certain rights, in particular, the ability to have that, trail, going through this property, to the 80 acres. I think that's our primary one. There can be a lot of other wording that goes into it, but, yeah, I don't see, how we're gonna be able to survey this, in advance of that. We'll just have to work through that, honestly.
But we do have the map that does show that 40 acres, and that's delineated, so that's a start.
Yeah, right, I mean, right now, it's pretty clear in that it's a 40-acre parcel. We do have a survey of the property as it stands now. So that's, that's the boundary we start with, but, it'll change a bit.
Good.
Hey,
Yes,
may I make an observation based on what Justin said?
Yeah.
That there are 3 dwelling units on the property. One of them, as you mentioned, is uninhabitable.
Mhm.
The one next to it is the one where the kind of tenant farmers are living right now. But there's a third one just to the west, which is where Greg Ingram would stay when he came. So in relation to Justin's comment, there is the potential right now, to have a succession group there, someone older who's farming and someone younger who's prepared to take over, because there are 2 habitable residences.
right. So now, I don't know how the county would look at the one, are they connected? The one that the caretakers are living in, is uninhabitable?
Yeah, there's a, there's a
Yeah.
hybrid, yeah.
Well, I don't know if that counts as 2, 3, I don't know, doesn't
I think
matter.
we're getting into the weeds.
Okay, no, biggies, we're not at the staying above. But anyway, good point.
Whatever you need, Susan and I will go up there at night, we'll fix it, so.
That's great. Okay. So we are scheduled for a break, but yes, please.
We live just, our home is actually 35 feet from the southern border on the western side there. And the western part of that property is not suited for row cropping, in my opinion. I mean, we've been there for 50 years, and Otto Zylstra, as you apparently discussed before we got here, was pumping groundwater through rain guns trying to make a golf course for Japanese tourists. And so it's really a grazing land, and we need to keep that in mind when you talk about farming.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay. If there's no further discussion, I think right now we'll take a break and we'll come back at what time? Supposed to be back at, well, not at 10:10. So let's take a 5-minute break.
It's your plan, that will be.
I know.
We will now start the meeting again. Okay.
Peter has his hand up. I don't know if that.
Peter, are you there?
I am here.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. I knew Rachel's going to give a presentation. I just wanted to make one quick comment, if I might, about things on Orcas. I'd say we're having a very good summer generally, but I've been noticing what I think is some really high use levels. Thanks to our seasonal field assistant, Scott Devereaux, we now have a year of trail data, excuse me,
I
at
saw that.
Turtleback, North Shore, and Coho Preserve. Nearly 50,000 cars this year. So from July 2025 to June 2026, about a 28% increase in use at North Shore over last year, which I think is not really surprising. People are discovering it. It's still relatively quiet, but roughly 69% of the visitors are going to Turtleback, the total for those three preserves. And I was talking to Aaron Rock this week, and we just had our highest month ever, I think, for porta potty service. I talked to Chappie, who services the toilets, and he went 3 times a week ago. And, I think we're just, Tanya mentioned that there's been maybe a lot of social media lately, maybe some unusual social media, but it feels like overuse. I mean, the parking lots are full, and I don't know, just wanted to raise that as an issue as we, consider how we promote or don't promote the preserves. It's it's a lot of use on Turtleback in particular. So, and that just means more trail maintenance, more parking lot maintenance, or more toilet maintenance. So
Yeah, I'd add, Peter, when I was up there the other day, I really I mean, in the past few years, I've been up there a lot and done some tending to trails, but I really noticed the impact on the trail on South Turtleback. It's really widening and threading and all that. You can really tell there's a lot of people going up there.
yeah, I've noticed it as well.
Well,
Okay.
I think the other thing we have to keep in mind is the promotion as it relates to tourism, and the island. Our island is inundated. You can't really even go to the grocery store. There's no parking at the grocery store. You can't, you couldn't really go to town for the 4th of July stuff, and the solstice parade. We are so packed. It's just incredible. So I, I think, yeah, promoting the preserves, I think we want to be on the lowdown on some of this.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Amanda, do you want to make a quick comment about outhouses and all of that? Or I can report out, but because I forgot to.
Well, I'll talk about a few things. One thing that wasn't in the stewardship report because it had already gone out was the channel. The fire on the west side of Lopez, which was on Monday. And as Peggy mentioned earlier, Channel Preserve was not affected. It happened about maybe 4 properties north of Channel, but we are certainly concerned. And we posted a temporary closure sign, and I removed it yesterday because even though the fire was mostly extinguished by Monday evening, there was still a lot of smoldering, and DNR crews were continuing to work up the beach of our preserve. We just decided to keep that closure sign up. DNR is investigating the fire, and there's been a few, there was a press release earlier in the week from the Lopez Fire Department about it, but other than that, not much is, officially known about the cause of the fire. But I was told that There was no indication that the channel preserve was related to the fire. So that's kind of all I can share, because we'll just know more when they make an official statement or press release about it. But really grateful to all the crews that were out there, and that helicopters came from the mainland, and their work. It was pretty intense. So
we're a little off agenda right now, just because we're not doing the stewardship report yet.
Oh,
But
we're
I
not?
just thought that, I thought the
sorry.
outhouse, I thought you might want to make a quick comment, follow up on the outhouse comment, and then we'll move into communications and come back to stewardship.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I jumped in a little bit late after you restarted the meeting. Okay, well, it was a stewardship report, but we've had a series of vandalism incidents on Lopez. The worst of which was fireworks in the outhouse. And luckily I was able to hire some help to resolve that issue, and the outhouse is also reopened.
Yeah, I was really glad Amanda got help with that, because it sounded horrible. Okay, I need to get back on agenda.
Okay.
So-
I'm sorry for pulling us off the agenda. I thought we were on
That's
stewardship.
okay. And I get it. So Tanya, communication and outreach.
I just assumed you were skipping me.
No, I wasn't meaning to. It was just such a hot
You know,
topic.
it's just always timing. There's not much more, I think, than what's in the stewardship report, which so after this today, I'll go set up booth at the Lavender Festival. So Alchemy is bringing back the Lavender Festival at the Old Pelendava Estate Farm that they've taken over, and they've been really great partners over the years, offering free painting on art on preserves. So my hope is to display some of the art that people have done. I've received some, and then others are just inspired, I think, by art. So we'll see how that goes. And then focusing now after that, it'll be the fair. So this will be a nice kind of dry run for resetting up for the fair, maybe some new ideas. We've kind of done the same thing the last couple of years, and we will be in the Green Village again, which is by the old Boy Scout cabin. If you haven't been before, we'll be. And still trying to finish up the Q2 second quarter / summer newsletter. So hopefully that'll be out next week.
Do you plan to send out signups for the fair sometime?
I do. That's in my, there's an Excel spreadsheet that I just have to update to say 2026. And send that out for you. Yeah.
So I want to add, so we've had communication with Tanya about fireworks on Lopez in Fish Bay, because Otis Perkins Land Bank owns some of that along there, and then there's the road that goes out there, and traditionally the fireworks are launched from there, and a lot of, anyway, so there was a letter, an inquiry, and Tanya did a great job of working to respond, and the question basically was, is this appropriate for land bank lands to have this kind of really high intense, loud activity out on our land bank land? So it's been an interesting conversation, and I think you did a great job of kind of helping to do the outreach on that. And I don't know if there's been any follow-up.
I haven't received anything back, but we'll give it maybe a week or so and then not right back. And I will comment to Peter's, the social media. Peter's not on Facebook, which is one of our main social media outlets, but a lot of the, I'd say, usage, aside from maybe Visitors Bureau or just what we come up with locally, it's influencers. You know, there's so many people out there that just tag, you know, top 10 things to do when you visit Orcas, just like San Juan and any other, everybody wants to come. It's a beautiful place. So I don't know, the algorithm is very interesting if it keeps showing up because I put things in, you know, but it has been popping up a lot more, and it's summer. So I didn't realize though, to the extent that the usage is till Peter had mentioned it, and we saw some of the numbers that they finally came through. A lot. And Anne Marie, you have a question?
Yeah, what was my question? I guess there's a couple different things. One, I was sensitive to what Justin said about kind of spreading the word about what the role of the land bank is during these critical budget times. And that might be something that we want to really kind of spend a little time thinking about how we want to go forward with that. And then I was curious to what I didn't see the letter about the Lopez Preserve and the fireworks. And I'm curious as to what our position is on that, because I certainly have an opinion, but I don't know what the organization's position is. So those were my two thoughts. Thanks.
Maybe that's a future agenda item.
Or
Yeah, I think we'll probably have to come back to that, but the short story is that was an existing use at that Tombolo property. Community fireworks were launched from there before we made the acquisition, and so I think the idea has been to continue to allow that because it's a community supportive event. It's actually in our management plan. But I think there's more and more resistance to the idea of fireworks in general. So that's really a big piece of what's going on here. I think it's probably, my hope would be, if we're gonna continue talking about this, that it's really more of a community-wide conversation and not about where the fireworks happen to be launched from. If people want to weigh in, my expectation is this would be a very divisive topic to take on, but certainly worth having some conversation at the community level. It's kind of a non-answer, but.
yeah, I totally concur with that, because it's such a popular event for many people on Lopez and people from away from Lopez. They just, Fish Bay is full. But there are some of us who really have a hard time with it, but it's interesting because the current person who organizes them all, he's much more eco-friendly. If you can believe that.
Eco-friendly fireworks.
Yeah.
Okay.
And notably, it's not like in
Yeah.
the property, it's on the road.
Right.
So when in public works, right.
We're around.
But the debris goes
Everywhere.
Yeah, anyway, working on it. I think it's a really relevant topic because it's not just fireworks, it's other things that happen too. So. Okay, I guess I'm in charge. Anything else, Tanya?
No, unless anyone has questions. And I'm happy to share it was just the Lopez commissioners that were involved in that specifically because it was a Lopez question, but thank you for bringing that up. I will forward it to the whole commission. You should all hear that.
Yeah. Okay, stewardship report, and I think we're gonna focus on Beaverton.
Let's talk trail.
Yay!
Where's Rachel?
Where's Rachel? There she is. Okay, this is a big topic.
So since our last meeting, we had a meeting with a subset of land bank commissioners to talk about the 90% design that we received, which was not quite 90% design. But going along with that, we got some figures. We have the trail broken into different segments. And there are numbers attached to these segments. We're thinking that these numbers are gonna come down. But this is our kind of shock and awe part of the meeting, where you get to see the figures that are being tossed around. The important thing to remember here, I'll let Rachel take over in a second, is that what we're going to do is establish an area that will be our base bid that we're required to go out to bid on. And then we'll have alternates, which will be different sections of the trail. And we'll do what we can with the funding we have. So with these numbers, it's pretty obvious we are not going to complete this trail project. It will be a trail, but the important piece of this really is getting that crossing in, so that's where we're gonna focus first.
Okay,
So, I'll just tell you what we're looking at right now. We're looking at, which is different than that map a little bit. We're looking at a breakdown that we did after that conversation with the other commissioners into segments that would be, that makes sense to separate out as alternates in a bid. So just a quick recap, we'll make a base bid and alternates. And then we have to award the base bid, but we don't have to award any alternates, or we could award any alternates that we choose based on how the numbers come in. The current cost estimate, which is out of date, and the numbers are really hard to even begin to talk about because it's so out of date, has us not being able to afford the whole project. WashDOT, our local programs organization in Shoreline, they are very, very interested in the completion of this project. They're looking for additional funds. I told them that it had to be no match. I don't know what they're going to come back with. That conversation might continue next week or the following week, and I should have more information. But if we're looking, yes, go ahead.
So when you say that, so this is not up to date?
So what you're looking at right now, this top part here, that has to do with our grant, and that part is correct. This part down here is what we have with the old data.
Thanks.
I expect the numbers from the old data to go down because the quantities they used were from an early design, and the quantity should be reduced. So the problem with splitting out alternates, and this particular plan that we laid out has six alternates, a base bid and six alternates, is that it makes it harder for the contractor to make sure that they are going to recover their overhead costs on doing the project. So we're going to be in negotiation with our consultant in terms of the best way to separate out alternates. It's a moving target. I'm very interested in people's opinions on what they'd like to see done. Our opinion is that the first thing that we do is the crossing. And if that's all we get done, that's all we get done. My preference is to do the crossing and the Beaver Trail East, which is the steep slope, and it's going to be really complicated to construct. That's what I'd like to see done. The rest of it is less complicated. Yes.
can you just highlight for everybody who's looking at the map that that east part is the red
Yes, the east part is the red.
going down the hill to the
Yes.
crossing, which is
The-
yellow,
The fingers, the two fingers,
right?
and the yellow is the crossing.
Right.
So, I'm just going to ask if there's any questions. I could go on for a long time if you want. But
Before we go on, I just want to point out that of these sections that you're looking at, we currently have a trail for everything except the blue, the crossing, which is the yellow, and the red. Otherwise, these trails are in place. They aren't to the standard of this project, but I just want people to be aware of how much is actually there right now.
Anne Marie has a question.
So, you said that the current cost estimate is out of date. Do we know what that is? Are we not talking about that? I don't know what, I don't see any cost estimates on that.
So, did this previous thing, that got sent to all the commissioners?
I don't know that
A few
everyone's
weeks ago.
received that.
Okay.
No, I didn't get it.
The current cost estimate is anywhere between $7.8 and $9 million.
Okay.
And we have for our construction funds, total, phase in the grant, $4.6 million, possibly 4.9, depending on how much we use up in the design phase.
Okay, so then my next question is, what does the base bid cost?
Well, the current estimate for the, for what we are, I'm sorry, I have to put a couple things together here. The current estimate for the crossing is between 3.3 and $3.8 million.
And how many, what's the distance that we're
Of
gonna
the
cover?
crossing?
Yeah,
Remember the number of that?
You're looking at just right over 300 feet, 310.
Yeah, 270 to 310. I thought it was like 270.
So the crossing goes across the marsh. You know
Yeah.
that.
yeah, I
That's
know
what-
that. I just wanted
Okay.
to know, I mean, because it looks like there's a fair amount of marsh area in some of those parts. So that's why I was asking what the
Yeah.
actual distance is that we're, that, because I know there's a lot of structure and stuff that has to be put in there. So that was my main thing. But then I don't know, do we know how much the Beaverton or the Beaver Trail East cost?
We had the Beaver East and West as
Uh-huh.
as a breakout, and that was between 2.3 and $2.6 million.
Okay. Okay,
So
so that's kind of why you're saying, those are the priorities. So thank you.
Yeah.
But I think it might be a question about whether Beaver Trail West is part of our priority. And I think everybody should know that our match is 13.5, which comes up to 824,000 for the land bank to put in. If we're consistent with the total amount of the federal funds grant, 5.2. Correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
the Beaver Trail, both east and west, are the only, and the crossing, they're the only sections that have no construction on them at this current time.
Right.
What's the timeline again?
The timeline, so the timeline is that we have to obligate construction funds by September 30th. WashDOT has to review our 100% plans and specs and give approval in order for us to obligate. The consultant is planning on a very early September submittal to WashDOT. It's tight. It's really, really tight. And then after we obligate, we have 6 weeks to go to bid. It's possible if we're looking for additional funding from WashDOT and there's conversations going on about that WashDOT will give us a reprieve to put off the bidding until we get the funding all worked out. That I should be able to resolve when I talk with WashDOT next week or the week after. Not necessarily resolve, but at least begin the conversation.
So right now you need from us our ideas on how far to go and where to allocate, where to ask for bids, basically.
I think just to prioritize, just
Yeah.
set the horror of the numbers aside for a moment.
Okay.
And think about what the priorities are. So, 1, 2, 3, what are our priorities?
I would like to just highlight a couple things. I misspoke, there is an additional little segment that hasn't been constructed And you can see it in the middle of the green, there's that little blue, loop out. That's a particularly steep section of the trail. And by steep, I mean under 12%. So it's not that steep, but when you're looking for accessibility, that's steep. So that little loop out, that is for a pedestrian only, no bicycles, little bypass. So that hasn't been constructed, and that's something to consider. When you're thinking about where our priorities are going to be.
I got a question. So if we only were able to do the crossing and potentially Beaver Trail East, the rest of the trail, it wouldn't be multimodal then, right? If the rest of it doesn't get done, it just remains its current condition.
Well, technically, it is not I don't believe bikes are restricted on the trail at this point, are they?
No.
So, it's just that it's not necessarily safe in 2 segments only for making that, run. It's the brown one, the squiggly, that is the red tail on the, John Lindy Park side. And then the dark blue on the very left of the project, that is, part of the, nuthatch. And that, both of those segments have been constructed, by land bank staff. And they're 5 feet, 6 feet, so they're just a little bit, they're not narrow like Mount Grant or some of these other trails, but they're narrow for bikes, and the sight distance for bikes in particular, because of their speed, is not so great for some segments in those areas. But they have gravel surfacing, very nice trail, and very accessible otherwise.
Can I ask a question to follow up on that, Rachel? So if let's say the money only covers the crossing, I mean, if we went ahead and constructed on our own dime the other, connecting sections, the beaver parts to different standards, to our own standards, is that problematic? Yeah, I mean, there are different ways it could be problematic. One, if we want it to be more accessible, but is there also I mean, are we in trouble if we accept that money and don't bring the whole trail up to WashDOT standards?
So the short answer is we are not in trouble. The longer answer is that these grant funds, they want an accessible trail. So they're not gonna be happy.
Yeah, okay.
But if we don't have the money, we don't have the money. We can get very close with land bank standards, maybe not at the width, but at least for grade, we'd have to do the Beaver Trail west and east. The west side, not outrageously expensive to do, typical trail construction expense. The east side, that would be very expensive for us to do.
Even with different
Even with different standards. Yeah.
So the west side also is the access for constructing the crossing.
That's correct. So when we do construct the crossing, as that would be our base bid, current plan, then the contractor would have to build some kind of temporary road, and they'd have to use our alignment for that. If they might deviate from it in 1 or 2 spots because of turning radiuses for construction vehicles. But the crossing should be able to be constructed with smaller equipment. So So that it won't be like we're looking at bringing the biggest pieces of equipment you can imagine down there. We're still using smaller equipment.
Cause there's no piles, it's those little.
The helical
Helical
piles,
piles,
yeah, which get drilled in.
Easy peasy.
So it's sounding like the crossing is obviously the first priority, the highest priority, but in order to have the crossing, you have to do the west side. So that would be priority number.
Not necessarily.
East side.
East.
We'd have to do we'd have to do the west side to get down to it, but it could be sort of a roughed-in construction road as
Okay.
opposed to a proper trail.
Yeah.
Okay. And then to connect, doing the east side would give a trail system just not up to the standards.
That's correct.
So that to me is sounding like the first three priorities. Where does that get us as far as expenses and available money?
Well, with the current cost estimate, I'm gonna try and do some math in my head.
Oh dear.
And we are looking at, on the low side, with the current cost estimate, $5.5 million. And we have, at best case scenario, we have just about $5 million. So if we get extra money from WashDOT but it does have a match, that's something to think about. You know, whether or not you will be willing to expend a little bit more money for whatever that match would be. I don't know if it will be at that 13.5% or if it would be at a different number.
Budget wise, Erin, do you want to speak to our current, if we stay to budget would be 800,000 or so, that would be our commitment. Do you want to speak to that in terms of budget?
Yeah, it's already been built in
Right.
to the budget, and it's already built into 2027 because you guys approved that at the biennium, even though the council didn't, the
Mhm.
commission did. You know, the resources are there. It's all about how you want to allocate them.
Right.
You know, we have room to do more work if we want, but that's up to you. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I'll weigh in. I think, you know, it's obvious, just as you alluded to, we have to get the crossing, we have to get something on the east and west side to connect everything. And in some ways, being this far over budget and maintaining somewhat primitive trails is actually, I think, a good thing in a way.
Mhm.
But we need to get over to Halverson to make this a really viable project. And so, and I'm reluctant, you know, 824,000 is a lot of money. I'm reluctant I wouldn't be in favor of approving additional money. Or putting the land bank on the hook for some larger project to finish things off.
Right.
So I think when we get the bids, right, that's gonna be the point where we really truly know where we're at with. And I would wonder if, when you put the bid package out, can you specify that they need to follow the trail corridor on Beaverton West, for example, so that we do get at least that roughed out where it could be somewhat functional as a
absolutely.
trail?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because if we can get all the way if we maintain a fairly primitive trail system and get the crossings, which are really nice, I'd be happy with that, but I just would be reluctant to put more money into it. I wouldn't vote in favor of that.
Anne Marie has a hand up.
Anne Marie.
Yeah, I just, based on your experience, what kind of, like overrun should we anticipate? So like if we're at like 5.5 and that includes our 800,000, what's your experience in terms of a job like this and how much more, you know, just like a wild ass guess?
So the cost overruns typically happen with unexpected site conditions. and also with the market costs. So if you know, the cost of oil is just going way up and fuel costs are really expensive at the time we're trying to do this, then we would be looking at cost overruns. So you could, the consultant has looked at a 10% design contingency and a 5% escalation. So that escalation is that inflation number, and then the 10% design contingency is if there's these unknown things that happen. I happen to think that we pretty much know everything that we're gonna encounter, except with the crossing. There is unknown there because of it being muck, but we have good information from geotechnical analysis. So, and the consultant who did the design of the pin piles, the helical piles is, they did a very thorough job. So, I don't think that we'll have problems on the trail, except possibly Beaver East, because it's complicated and tight. So that we might have some overruns, and in other areas, I don't think we will have much in the way of potential cost overruns. Note that during construction, we have the option of pulling back quantities, changing lengths of places that we're doing things, removing components of work as needed, as site conditions make necessary, or even if we've decided we don't want that many benches, for instance, we can pull those kinds of things back. The problem with changing quantities after you've gone to bid is that if it's a substantial change, the contractor has the ability to request an increase in unit prices because they build in overhead in their unit prices. So there's, I think it's 10%, it could be 20%. I'm pretty sure it's around 10 or 15% change before the contractor has that option. Unless there's something special like the crossing might be different from that one. Right.
So you have confidence that what's built in as an overrun cost would address increases in fuel prices, et cetera, because we know that's at this point in time a given. It will be increasing.
Right. In terms of on this colored thing, that the higher number has that design contingency and escalation in it. The lower number that I quoted for Anne Marie for the crossing in Beaver East West, which was okay. 5.5, yes, that's right. I was thinking wrong call. 5.5, that that's the lower cost. So there would be I didn't quote her the highest cost.
Okay.
So-
Yeah, go ahead.
So with 10% plus 5%, instead of 5.5, we're looking at 6.2, if my math is correct, something like that.
Yeah, 6.4 maybe. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm curious to hear from people about what they know at this point. I'm assuming everybody's walked it. Some parts of it. I have not walked on the west side, which is my problem, my mistake. But what people see as priorities right now. Do people agree at the crossing and the east, or crossing and the east and the west? What do people think? And or if your priority is, yeah, we have to hold the line in terms of budget.
Oh, I thought I heard Rachel say that you need to do some kind of, Beaver Trail West, even if it's just a rough
Right.
road in order to get to do the actual crossing.
Right.
So that seems like that has to happen. Obviously, the whole reason we're doing this is to build a crossing. And then the Beaver East seems pretty necessary.
Yeah.
So,
So the rough road that's put in is part of those costs are attributed to the crossing. Not constructing that.
So all that gravel for the truck to get down there.
oh,
Right.
yeah, that
Okay.
helps.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that technically would be then usable as a hiking option. on the
It
crossing.
could be with some additional work. So let's say that they're just putting in a rough construction road on the alignment that we have, maybe deviating in one or two spots. They might come in with cobbles and just, they may not have grub it out super great. They might just put cobbles down on top of what's there. And that would not be a surface that we would want people walking on. So we would have to do something on top of that to make that walkable. But that is a lot less expense and work to do than doing the cleaning, grubbing, and all the other things that would go with doing a proper trail.
And I would say, so one of my goals is that we don't, in making these kind of incremental choices, that we aren't kind of inadvertently committing to something down the road that's actually gonna cost us another 50 or 100 or 200,000. So I want to be really clear about what we're really committing to.
Yeah.
Another way to look at this is we do have a 13.5% match. Basically, we're getting, for every dollar we put in, we're getting $7 back in grants. So it's a very large number, but it makes sense over the very long term, it seems to me.
Just a
And-
5-minute warning for you.
Yeah.
Oh,
If I could follow up on Tim's comment, that if we can get additional grant funding, even if it were at the same level where it's a 13.5% match to, not necessarily complete the whole project, but get closer, that would be, a good value for the land bank for what might have to be done in the future. And even though we have this usable trail, there are sections on Dragonfly where it gets pretty muddy. We have some improvements that need to happen in there, in order to make it safer in the wintertime. So, anyhow, that's just something to consider as we get better information, and as soon as I have something for you, I can send that out. But it might be next meeting if we get it.
okay. Well, this has been a good discussion, and we will be talking about this again in August. We are on a really tight timeline, a lot of unknowns still. So, yeah, I would suggest anybody have any questions, in the meantime, shoot them to Lincoln and you can forward them to Rachel and make sure that we keep addressing these. Marilyn?
Hey, Peggy, I just wanted to ask about the possibility of having a special meeting if we need to, since we are on this time frame, tight timeline, just to let the commissioners know or staff if we can do that. Thanks.
I'd be in favor of that, because this is really complex and we're talking about significant money. So, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay, with that, future agenda items, does anybody have any quick comments about that? I have a whole list of them. But, I know we're gonna be talking about tribal, coming up, and yeah, I'd love to talk about agricultural criteria and how we're looking at that, all the funding. Yeah. looking back at our TPL public survey and renewal and what the priorities were. And our climate element. Those are a few things that I want to make sure we keep talking about, but. Anybody else want to add anything?
Barry's about 8 minutes late to see it.
Oh, yeah, we can breathe. Okay. Well, they were gonna.
We did have Mark on hand up.
Oh, Mark. Hi.
Yeah, are we on public comment section yet?
Oh, okay, go for it.
Okay, just a quick question for Lincoln on the Talking Horse Farm property. I assume you've looked into potential state funding under RCO, under one of their grant categories. And if it might be available, whether there could be retroactivity so that the property could be purchased and that the state funding come in later.
Well, we'll probably get a waiver of retroactivity. I don't see much possibility of getting an RCO grant for this. This is one of our big problems with interior forest properties or interior properties in general. The categories we're most competitive in are water access or aquatic lands enhancement or salmon recovery. So none of those really apply. The farmland protection account gives money for conservation easement purchases. And we are just not competitive in that category, given the types of farms we're up against on the mainland. So, you know, it's not very good news in terms of trying to find additional funding for this project.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, well, we're gonna go ahead and adjourn a little bit early, and thanks, everybody.
Bye.